What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Sanjeet back at it with another video. Damn, that was a tough game, man. Super tough game. We're gonna talk about it because the Raiders season may be over, but I'm gonna say it's not. I know a lot of people are going to be negative this week through the bye week. A lot of people are going to definitely be upset about the Raiders losing this game, but uh, we definitely had a close game. We definitely got close, and let's be honest, like the fact that the Raiders were able to score 29 points against the Kansas City Chiefs, that too, there were no defensive touchdowns. Derek Carr really stepped up, in my opinion, at certain points in this game. The O line looked good. Josh Jacobs, career high 154 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt. That's a pretty solid day, in my opinion. At the end of the day, the Raiders had the opportunity and we just couldn't pull it out. We couldn't get the win. But I think this is still definitely a great game for the Raiders. 1-4 sucks. No way to look around it. No way to hide that. 1-4, you're likely not going to miss, or you're likely not going to make the playoffs. But never say never, right? It's not 100% over. Raiders obviously still have a shot. Um, but the Raiders lost, man, and it really sucks. Overall, man, I think there were a couple of guys who had great games for the Raiders. First and foremost, Josh Jacobs, man, big shout out to Josh Jacobs. I'll be the first to say this. I thought before this season that Josh Jacobs should not be a Raider next year, specifically because running backs is a position that you can find in the draft, and he's 100% proven me wrong, man. Josh Jacobs looks like an absolute beast this season. So big shout out to Josh. 154 yards, man. There's no way to go against that, right? So big shout out to Josh Jacobs. Davante Adams had an okay game, right? I think more catches would have helped the Raiders. 3 catches, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. Two of them were obviously the deep catches, of course, and the second one was a great catch by Adams. But the one we really needed was the one at the end of the game. The one we needed, he unfortunately stepped out of bounds, right? And the Raiders ended up not being able to get it done. Now, Derek Carr had a great game as well. 19 of 30, 241 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was sacked twice, but overall, really solid game by him, Josh, and Davante. And the offensive line from left tackle to right tackle, I think, did a pretty decent job. I know some people are going to continue to hate, but I think the Raiders' offensive line is pretty solid. I think when you average 7.3 yards per attempt on the ground, that means something, right? You can say the Raiders' offensive line isn't good. You can say this, or that. At the end of the day, the Raiders' offensive line still did a really good job. Someone said that Sanjeet was crying. Gang member here, Sanjeet was crying. You guys can see my eyes are red. Obviously, I've been up since 6 o'clock in the morning. I've been working literally all day today. Had my contacts in, obviously. But let's talk about it. I want to get into some of you guys' questions. I see some super chats. I do want to quickly point out as we're here. I have my camera on, right, instead of my webcam. If you guys know, in the last couple weeks, I switched over from this camera to a webcam to go live. I put the camera back in. Hopefully, it lasts the full live stream. At any point, if it goes out, we'll switch over to the webcam. But let's talk about this, man. I see a couple of super chats. Some people are angry about the defense. A lot of people are upset that the defense didn't play better, but let's be honest. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, one of the best defenses in the league, gave up 40 points to the Chiefs. All right. I think at some point you got to look at the offense you're playing and saying you're going to give up points. It is up to the offense to outscore that defense. And truth be told, I think we just settled for too many field goals. The Raiders got to score. They got to get better in the red zone. Kicking field goals is not the way to win. And the Raiders they kicked 3 field goals today, right? And I think ultimately you can say that was one of the issues for the Raiders, right? Let's get into the first super chat. I see a lot of people talking about Carr and how Carr killed us. You guys know how I feel about Carr, right? I don't think Derek Carr was necessarily 100% to blame, right? I think that would be, I don't think that's right. Matthews did penalties killed us. Not going for the PAT was a mistake. It was too early. Why are we not running on the 3rd and 1 late there? Plenty of time to take shots at getting into field goal range. That's a great point, man. I'm not gonna necessarily disagree with what you're saying. I do think going for the 2 point conversion was correct, because in my opinion, if you convert that, you're up by one. You only got to get one stop at that point. One turnover, one interception, one sack, right? On 2nd and 5, that puts them in a 3rd and 15, right? I don't think that was the wrong call, but I know everyone's going to have their own opinions on it. Ultimately, it didn't work out for the Raiders. But I do like Josh McDaniels being aggressive. Even last week, he kicked an onside kick out of nowhere, right? And people are upset, but I like the call. Be aggressive, right? And even for Derek Carr, right? Derek Carr threw some aggressive passes. And for me, that's what I want to see out of Derek Carr, right? So if I want to see Derek Carr be aggressive and he does it, then I'm going to give him credit for it, right? Uh, I like going for the not kicking the field goal, right? You said why not run it on 3rd and 1 late there, plenty of time to take shots. Uh, I don't know. I really don't know, but I think Davante Adams should have caught that pass. Unfortunately, the ball shook around a little bit and he didn't get both of his feet down. It's unfortunate, man. It's literally a game of inches, literally, right? Even Josh Jacobs running it on the PAT, he was like, half a yard away or something, right? It sucks. It really does suck when you end up losing. And some people are upset with Darren Waller, and I'll be the first to tell you guys, man, I don't know what the hell's going on with Waller. Like, I've heard some people say Darren Waller was just a product of John Gruden, and he's not that good. And at this point, like, I'm not being proven wrong, right? Like, I would have argued saying Darren Waller's a really good tight end, but he's not showing it. Like, Darren Waller's doing everything the complete opposite, right? I don't know, man. I don't know what the hell's going on. Some people are saying the Raiders should tank. And you can make the argument they should tank, but what do you do if you tank? Like, if you get the 7th overall pick, right? Who do you take? Because all the quarterbacks are going to be gone, right? I do think Josh McDaniels has a plan. Justin said y'all wanted Kuntz, and he delivered for y'all. I saw this a lot on social media, man. A lot of people are saying Malcolm Kuntz, terrible job holding this, and that. That's high level analysis, right? If you're gonna say Malcolm Kuntz held, he's stupid, he's this, he's that. You guys got to realize the coach designed a play for them to block the field goal, and part of that was Kuntz potentially grabbing someone and allowing someone to jump that gap. It didn't work, right? Not only did the referees call the penalty, but ultimately they got the first down because of that. But don't think Malcolm Kuntz went out there and decided he was going to hold the guy, right? That's designed, right? The special teams coach designed that play. Obviously, it didn't work for the Raiders. But to say that's on the player and not on the coach is kind of crazy to me. I think the coach and maybe the coach will come out and say it. Maybe Josh will say it if he's asked. Maybe the special teams coach will come out and say it, right? We'll see what ends up happening. But I think to say Malcolm Kuntz made the decision to hold, I don't know. I don't really agree with that. Mike, thank you for the $5 donation. A big shout out to you. We got a shout out to you, Octavius Prescott. Big shout out to you. Left a $32.32 super chat. If you guys have been here, this is the 3rd super chat my guy Octavius has left. His first was for $8.88. The next was for $16.16. Now he's at $32.32. Big shout out to you. You said crap coaching. No run for first at end. No squib kick at end of half to eat up clock. Didn't we see KC Buffalo last year? You don't give Mahomes 17 seconds. 43 years watching football, never seen holding penalty, wipe out, miss field goal. It's crazy because you don't really see that, right? I think that was a bad decision, right? If Malcolm Kuntz made that decision, that's bad on him. I don't think he did. I think it was a designed play. Bill Belichick's done these things in the past. I think Josh McDaniels is maybe taking his chances as well. But it's hard to say, like, should we have, squibbed it or kicked it where we forced him to catch the ball and waste some clock? Maybe, right? I think that would have been the smart decision, but just don't get a penalty on yourself, right? I don't remember exactly who it was. I can't think of it on top of my head, but you can't get a penalty in those situations. Maybe it was John Harmon, maybe it was someone else. I believe not only did they horse collar, but they pulled the face mask as well. At the end of the day, you got to get it done, right? I think Patrick Graham did a lot of really good things this week. I think the defense did a lot of really good things, but ultimately they weren't able to get it done. Right, the score was 17-0 at one point, and the Raiders at that point only scored 12 more points from that point. From the time they had 17 points, they literally only scored 12 more points, and the Chiefs put up 30 in that time frame. Right, that's not good enough on both sides of the football. Less field goals, more touchdowns is going to help the Raiders on offense. But starting 0-3 on third downs for the Chiefs and then letting them convert the next 5 third downs isn't going to allow you to win football games, right? I think there was a lot of mistakes, man. I think there was definitely some issues with the coaching, in my opinion. Yeah, man. I'm gonna go ahead and block someone here. Do note if you guys post stupid ass shit, I'm gonna block you guys, and you guys will not be able to comment going forward. It's just stupid. 88 said season is over. Anyone who thinks otherwise is delusional. Nothing is more depressing than being a Raider fan. I'm checking out until next year. I don't think the season's over, man. I know a lot of people want to say the season's over, but if you can compete with the Kansas City Chiefs, if every one of our games, like we probably lost by like a combined 10 points at this point. Someone can probably do the math, but we've been in it in every single loss, right? In all 4 of our losses, think about this. Derek Carr has had the football with the ability to either score and win or at least tie the football game in every single one of our games. So it's not like the season's over. It's not like we can't compete with some of these best teams. I definitely hear what you're saying, 88 on that. You're gonna check out, but hopefully you check back in, man. Hopefully you check back in as we get closer to potentially making the playoffs. I don't think the season's over. I think we've been competing. I do think that this new coaching staff has to really get their guys. They 100% have to figure out who for them is going to make it work, right? Like, is Chandler Jones the guy, right? If he is, if he isn't, what about Devine Diablo? What about Denzel Perryman? What about guys like Jonathan Abram, right? All these guys have to get replaced, and that takes time. You can't do that in one offseason. And I'm not saying all those guys are going to get replaced. I'm just saying Patrick Graham needs his guys that he feels comfortable with. Josh McDaniels needs his right tackle. He needs his left guard and his tight end. Josh McDaniels needs his guys, and that takes time to build, right? I think the biggest mistake the Raiders could do today is to fire Josh McDaniels and say, let's go ahead and move on and restart the rebuild. I think a coach needs at least 2 seasons, and year 3 is when you make the judgment, right? If he's winning games, great. If he's not, get rid of him, right? I think year 3 is the year. Julian said, don't understand why we got 2 receivers going deep when you need 1 yard for the first down on the last play. Had almost a minute to still work with. That's a great point, man. We saw that Renfro ran a deep out route, and Adams was running some sort of deep post. I think the play call was absolutely questionable. You needed 1 yard. As the super chat previously mentioned, why not run it when it's 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 1? I'm sorry, 3rd and 1. Why not run it on 3rd and 1 and then pass it? Like, why pass twice in that situation? Right. And I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, because let's be honest, Davante Adams had a first down. He just wasn't able to hold it in. I don't like the 4th down call. I'll be the first to tell you guys. Ultimately, if it worked out, we'd be saying something different. But I do think it was a bad call. But I also understand their defensive coach for the Chiefs loves to blitz. And I believe he blitzed on that play, maybe brought 1 or 2 extra guys. The film study is going to be interesting this week, man. I'm telling you guys right now. I think the Raiders absolutely did some good things, right? Never underestimate. Even though it's a loss, we can still take some positives from this play. Mark Torres, shout out to you. You said, was that not actually a catch? I'm going to be honest. I don't think it was a catch. Yeah, technically he had the ball and he had both feet down, but then he bobbled the ball, right? And then he didn't get both feet down. And I think the fact that he bobbled the football ultimately made it incomplete. I'm going to run a poll on Twitter. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, make sure you guys follow me. I'm going to ask you guys if you guys thought that was a catch. I know a lot of people are going to say it was not a catch, but I know there's still some people who are going to think it was a catch. I don't think so. T. Riddler said Waller is the most overrated player in the league. What's crazy is 6 weeks ago, we were all saying that, it's Darren Waller and Travis Kelce, and then Kittle's right there. I don't think it's even close to being Waller at all anymore. I think it's by far number one. And number two, I think you can make the argument, is Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. Number one, number two. Everyone else comes underneath that. I don't even think Waller's the top three guy anymore. I think he's a good football player, but I think it'd be biased of us to say Waller is still a top three guy when Andrews is obviously better. And maybe you can say he's a top three, right? But I will say he's not one or two, not close to being one or two. That's my personal opinion, right? Everyone can have their own opinion. It's crazy how Waller's really fallen off, right? Like, he's really fallen off. Conchuck, shout out to you, said Raider offense had multiple chances to win this game and they blew it. Coach McDaniels called it brilliant, aggressive game. Fact. I could not disagree with you at all. Anyone that says Josh McDaniels lost his game, I would disagree with it. Last week we said let's run the football and let's win that way, and we won. We ran the football. This week we said let's run the football. That's how we're gonna win, and we did, and we had success running the football. Josh McDaniels called the perfect game plan. We ran the football, and then we threw off the run. 7.3 yards per attempt by Josh Jacobs, 6.5 yards per attempt by the entire offense. And that includes Zamir White losing 7 yards, right? I think Josh McDaniels did a great job. And I think ultimately, although we lost the game, we lost by a point. We could have easily kicked the field goal at the end and won. We could have easily converted that 2-point conversion and won, right? We could have won the football game. So it's not that crazy to think that, we had like a bad game plan. I'm going to be honest. Everyone said the Raiders can get blown out this game. Everybody. And we lost by 1 point. I think the Raiders changed more people's minds about them than anything else, right? That too, in Kansas City, I think the Raiders compete with the Chiefs, man. I really think that. Old Man's Raider Nation, shout out to you for being a member. Shout out to you for all the comments. I read every single one of your comments. You said kick an extra point and we would have tied. What the F? Fire McDaniels. I don't know. Again, I know everyone's going to have their own opinion, and I wouldn't say it's the wrong opinion. I would have went for the two. If the game was tied and Patrick Mahomes is in a 4th and 3 situation, because remember, the Raiders forced him to punt, I think they would have went for it, and there's a chance they would have gotten it, and there's a chance they would have been more aggressive to try to win the football game than punt the football, right? Punt the ball. But I feel like because they were ultimately up by 1, they punted the football on 4th and 3, right? Which gave the Raiders the opportunity with the football. Remember, 17 seconds may not be enough to stop Patrick Mahomes from scoring, right? So I think the right call was to go for it, but that's my personal opinion. Great Tribulation, shout out to you. Said offense looked good and tight. It was competitive. Carr was good. Defense let off the gas. I think we're about to turn a corner, nearly beat the best. Fact. I get it. People are going to say, first and foremost, shout out to Derek Carr. Shout out to the entire offense, because they were not the issue. Like, Derek Carr was far from the issue this week. Yeah, there are moments where we could have said, well, Derek Carr should have done more in this certain situation. But let's not act like Patrick Mahomes in every situation scored either, right? Patrick Mahomes was stopped multiple times as well. Every quarterback gets stopped. But I think when I watched Derek Carr this week, the one criticism I've always had in the past was this guy's not moving around. He's just standing back there taking sacks. Today, he was moving. He was climbing the pocket, getting out of the pocket. He threw it deep multiple times, right? Not even just the 2 Davante Adams touchdowns. Twice he threw to Matt Collins deep. One was in double coverage, right? Those are the plays that open everything up, and Derek Carr did it, and that's all I've ever asked of Derek Carr. So shout out to Derek Carr for playing a better game today. I know we didn't get the win, but DC was far from the issue today. He played a very solid game. I think the defense obviously has some issues. Obviously, they need to get better. Even though we would say 30 points isn't bad, right? Mahomes has averaged 37 against the Raiders over the past 8 games. 30 isn't bad. That's technically better than what he's done in the past. Obviously, the thing with giving up 30 points today is, we may play the Texans tomorrow and they'll score 40 points on us. We may play the Colts and they might score 35 points on us, right? It almost seems like against the really bad teams, we don't shut them down. we don't stop them from scoring more than 10 points, right? Like, I can't even think about the last time the defense stopped someone to 10 points, right? But I do think they played a pretty solid game today, right? So I do give a shout out to the offense and defense. At the end of the day, every single game this year, I should say, Derek Carr has at least gotten the opportunity to drive downfield, and it hasn't worked in any of the 4 losses, right? But the defense has still gotten the ball back, right? And I think that's all you can really ask. And it might be next year, but these type of games, the Raiders are going to end up winning, right? These close game of inches, right? The Raiders are going to win these games. It's just a matter of time. Big shout out to you, Kikaka Raider, and I apologize if I said that not wrong. Said, should we hire a new special teams coach? Been terrible. We had a pretty good special teams coach last year, if you guys remember, man. I don't know. I don't think I don't think the Raiders need to go out and get a new special teams coach. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, to be 100% honest with you guys. I think at the end of the day, it just the ball didn't bounce our way, right? That's all you can really say. Daryl Canada said, tuning in to see how y'all blame this on Derek Carr. Thank you for the super chat. I don't think anyone's blaming Derek Carr, but thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Arnie said, too many mistakes and penalties. I don't know how much penalties really killed the Raiders. I think the one was obviously the Malcolm Coons penalty. Some of the other penalties, there was one other one where it was the offensive pass interference. I think those two were the big ones because the offensive pass interference ruined the drive. I think right after the OPI, I think Derek Carr may have had a delay of game. I can't remember exactly what the penalty was, but we're in like a 2nd and 27 or something ridiculous. But even the OPI, like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think it was bullshit. And I say that because the Chiefs ran those pick plays hundreds of times, right? They ran these plays. Travis Kelce scored a touchdown on one of these plays. But yet they didn't call those on the Chiefs. They only called them on the Raiders, right? I think that was bullshit, right? But it is what it is. I do think penalties obviously played a game. I think they definitely played a part in the Raiders losing. I'm going to pull up the numbers really quickly. The Raiders had 11 penalties for 99 yards. I don't know if those penalties were that impactful, though, in my opinion, right? And I say that because I know we had a penalty on Illuminor, I believe it was, the cross or the chop block. That one ruined the game and then that drive. But then we had another penalty on the next drive. I don't remember if it was a hold or something else, but that penalty didn't end up mattering. Right? We ended up scoring on that drive regardless. And there are a couple of penalties that we ended up scoring on. Again, I guess you can say penalties definitely hurt the Raiders, right? Because we've been, I believe, the least penalized team coming into this week. All right. So again, I look at those things and I say there's definitely hope going forward. Mike, shout out to you, said on that last Raider pass play, do you think somebody ran the route wrong? I'm gonna assume ran the wrong route. Why are 2 receivers in the same place end up running into each other? I don't think so. Davante Adams was on the outside. He had a post, and then Hunter Renfrow in the slot had an out. They should not have run into each other. What ended up happening was the cornerback on the outside pressed Davante Adams, and he got a really solid press. He rerouted Davante Adams. They talk about that when they talk about corners. As a corner, you want to reroute your wide receiver, and that corner did a great job hitting Davante Adams, rerouting him, and ultimately Adams was late. And, as he was late, they just ran right into each other. That's how routes are designed, right? They're going to be designed off one another. Every route is one like that. And guys run into each other at least once a week. Like, I could probably show you guys 10 plays over the last 10 weeks of our guys running into each other. But, maybe it's a completed pass to the other side. Or maybe the quarterback took off and running. So no one really notices, right? It's not like it's a game-changing play. In this instance, it just happened to be a game-changing play. So we're going to all remember this, right? 2 guys running into each other. But do know it happens all the time in the NFL, right? Guys run into each other. It's unfortunate, right? I don't think they ran the wrong route, though. Brian said Packers get our first-round pick next year. I don't think that's fact. I think the Raiders have their first-round pick. Mike said, it doesn't matter, Sanjay. You are what your record says you are, and Carr didn't win it all those games, buddy. Love you, but you're wrong. I hear you, man. I definitely hear what you're saying. Shout out to you for the second super chat. My man over here said, do you think we should go quarterback in the first round? DC is allergic to scoring touchdowns and has them butter fingers. I do think the Raiders should get a quarterback. I've been very open about that. I don't think Derek Carr is the guy. Although I think he had a great game today, and this is nothing against Derek Carr. I think he's a good football player, but I think the league has shifted it away from what quarterbacks were, 15 or 20 years ago. I think you have to be, you don't even have to be a great passer of the football, but you have to be great around the pocket. You have to be able to, if a guy's coming off the edge, you have to be able to evade that. And although Derek's done a good job these past 2 games, something just tells me he's not going to be, consistent going forward. Plus, I think paying a quarterback $40 million hinders a team. Unless your quarterback's a top 7 quarterback, unless he's a guy like Lamar Jackson who doesn't need anyone around him minus one other guy, Lamar Jackson makes things happen. And you can pay a guy $40 million for that. But for a guy that may need a really good offensive line, a really good receiver and tight end, you can't pay that guy $40 million because then our defense is going to suck, right? And I think for us, our defense can never be top tier if you're paying a quarterback $40 million, right? Even when Carr got his first contract at $25 million or whatever it was, right? At the end of the day, at that time, that was the same percentage of the salary cap as it is today, right? If a quarterback's getting paid that much money, the quarterback has to be the guy to carry everything, right? I think the Raiders should go quarterback in the first round, but if you're going to go quarterback in the first round, you have to get one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. I don't want to get stuck getting like the 6th best quarterback and we take him with the 15th pick. That doesn't make sense, right? I think if you're going to go quarterback, you have to take one in the top 3 or 4 picks. Shout out to you for the super chat. Ahmed said, who are you blaming this game? Better not be DC or the O. I think everyone pretty much lost this game. If you're going to tell me the defense lost this game, I would make 100 counter arguments against that. At the end of the day, Derek Carr had the ball and he had the ability to go downfield and get us in field goal range, and he didn't. At the same time, you can say, well, the defense gave up 30 points. So you can blame this on whoever you want. But if you're going to make excuses for Derek Carr, you should look at yourself and really say, like, this game's not on Derek Carr. This game, you can put the blame wherever you want, right? For this game. I would say that, right? Matt said, I love your takes, Sanjeev, but Sanjeev, we are not that team. I love the optimistic takes, but it's not there. We'll see, man. I do appreciate you, man, for reals. I appreciate your comments, your super chats, of course. It's going to be interesting, man, because I do think our schedule gets easier going forward. We got a lot of easy matchups, in my opinion, the rest of this season. Minus the last 2 games, I think we have a lot of winnable games at this point. They'll be tough games, but they're winnable, right? I think 10 wins gets you into the playoffs. So it's definitely a far way to get there, but if this team clicks, man, I think we can definitely be really good. 88 said, good God, Sanji, get off the copium. We are 1-4 going into the bye. We are literally the laughing stock of the NFL. We are. I disagree with that, man. I really do disagree. I don't know. I think after that game, people are not saying the Raiders are the laughing stock in the NFL, right? I don't know. I disagree with that, but I do appreciate the super chat. Conchuck said it would be very Raider-like to come out of the bye and lose to the Texans, just like they come out of a timeout, then get a delay of game penalty. I agree with you, man. Don't be surprised if the Texans put up, 40 points on the Raiders and we score like 6. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. It almost seems like we don't beat the teams we need to beat, right? It almost feels like that to me. I don't know. So we'll see what ends up happening. Shout out to you, Justin, for the super chat. You said Kelce, yet another highlight reel against the Raiders. This is where we lost. Defense can't go to sleep. You know what's crazy is I actually felt like we did a really good job against Travis Kelce. I get it. Travis Kelce had 4 touchdowns, and you can't say a guy, you did a great job against a guy who had 4 touchdowns, which is true. But the Raiders bracketed Kelce, and he only had 25 yards. Like, that's not that crazy, right? The Chiefs were going to score touchdowns regardless. One could have went to Marquise Valdez-Scantling. One could have went to McCole Hardman. One could have went to Jerick McKinnon, and Patrick Mahomes could have ran one in. Right? I don't think the fact that he has 4 touchdowns really matters. It would have been different if the Raiders got off the field and forced field goals, but I think we did a pretty solid job. He only had 25 yards, right? And I think going forward, I like the game plan of bracketing Travis Kelce. I think that's the way forward for the Raiders. Shout out to you for the super chat. I really, really do appreciate it. I see a lot of people talking about Darren Waller. I'm definitely gonna definitely have to do like a separate video just talking about Darren Waller, because I do feel at this point he's not producing what he should be producing for the Raiders. Top 5 paid tight end, and that's what he's given us. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Danner said, how do you feel about the field goal hold on Kuntz? I talked about it earlier, but I'll just get into it really quickly because I know a lot of you guys are here that probably weren't here. But before we get into it, man, over 730 of you guys, if you guys just hit that thumbs up button, it really does help this channel. So I really appreciate it. Some people are saying it's on Malcolm Kuntz. He's an idiot. He messed up. He should not have held. And you can make the argument that maybe he went, he decided on his own self that I'm going to just go ahead and hold the guy here. I don't think that's what happened. I think the coach designed a play for Malcolm Kuntz to potentially hold a guy, maybe pull him a little bit. And then the hope is someone can slip underneath that or around that, right? And be able to block the kick. That obviously didn't happen, and the Raiders got called for a penalty. But I find it hard to believe that Malcolm Kuntz has played on every single field goal snap going back to last year, and he's never held anyone. And for some reason, on this one random penalty, on this random kick, he decided to hold someone. I think there's something else there. I think it was likely some sort of design by the coaching staff. And of course, I got to check the tape out, and we'll see how bad of a hold it was or wasn't. Either way, I don't think it's on Kuntz, but again, that is my initial reaction. I will update that on Twitter. Matt said, Sanjay, please get in your head. No matter how good we played, we lost. I get it. I get it. But, I think you can take some positives from this game, man. Josh Jacobs, 154 yards. Like, how can you hate or how can you not hate? But how can you say that that's not a good portion, right? Like, we're going to go into next week or in 2 weeks against Texans. We're going to say, let's run the freaking football and let's have Josh Jacobs average 7 yards per attempt, right? Johnny Press, shout out to you, said McDaniels is a great coordinator, but good coaches find ways to win close games. That's why Anthony Lynn was fired from the Chargers. However, I have faith in McDaniels and think he'll turn it around. You do make a solid point. I'm not going to disagree with that. Great coaches win football games. That is fact. There's no sugarcoating that statement. And I agree with you. Josh McDaniels is a great coordinator. He calls a great offensive play for the Raiders. Ultimately, I just don't think the Raiders have the investments there on offense and defense going forward, right? And I think that takes time. I know some people want Josh McDaniels fired. I know it trended on social media like 2 weeks ago, but I don't think he's that bad. I think he's a pretty solid coach. He makes good in-game adjustments, right? Like, we put up 29 points on the offense side of the ball. I think we made all the correct decisions. Like, there's no one play or moment that I would say that was a bad call, right? I would say that Josh McDaniels did a pretty solid job. I do appreciate the super chat. Now, I will say this. I think Josh McDaniels should have 2 full seasons. And in the second season, we should see where he is. If we win 1 or 2 games, fire him. But if we win 8, 9, 10 games, you keep him around next year, right? And then going into year 3, he needs to prove himself in the first 8 weeks. If we're not on par to make the playoffs, you fire him, right? A coach does not need 3 seasons. If we win 2 games this year, 4 games next year, you get rid of McDaniels. But if there's hope, give him 3 years. I think the worst thing the Raiders can do right now is to say, let's start over. A new coach, a new scheme, a new system isn't going to fix the Raiders. We need smart football minds to build this team. Like, Gruden and Mayock did a great job with some of their draft picks, but most of them they messed up on. Right? Cleveland Farrell was a mistake. Jonathan Abram hasn't panned out. Josh Jacobs, who takes a running back in the first round. That too, people would argue Miles Sanders came out in the same draft is way better than Josh Jacobs. I don't know if that's fact, but there's been a lot of really bad draft picks by Gruden and Mayock, and I think they set us back a little bit. I do think that Ziegler and McDaniels could get the Raiders back on track. I like what they've done so far. We'll see as they kind of continue to build, and we'll see how it is going forward. I do appreciate the super chat, Johnny. So big shout out to you, Rao. Big shout out to you, Sid. There's a lot of would have, should have, could have off, but this shows us that with some bounces our way, we are definitely contenders, bro. Fact. Anyone that does not think the Raiders are contenders are lying to you, man. The Raiders are contenders. You know, how many points have we lost all of our games, combined points? I don't know on the top of my head, but I'm going to say it's like less than 12 or 15 points. We've been in it every single week, and we've literally lost because of a fumble, or we didn't convert play 1, or we didn't convert play 2, or play 3, or play 4. We've literally lost with the ability to win the game or tie the game in every single one of our losses. The offense has had the ability to win or tie the game every single week, and it just hasn't worked yet. But I do think it is going to work eventually. It's just a matter of time. I think there's a lot of hope for this Raiders team, man. I know some people are not going to be hopeful, but I think there is. Yusuf Hashimi, shout out to you, or Hasimi. Sanjeet, the reason we're not scoring as much is because of these holding calls. DC is nowhere near the problem. I don't think Derek Carr was a problem at all today. Oh, shit. Sorry about that. I don't think Derek Carr is the problem at all, to be 100% honest with you guys. Give me a second. Let me fix this. I don't think Derek Carr is the problem at all, to be honest with you guys. There's some people who think Derek Carr was 100% to blame, but when you're 19 of 30 for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, you only got sacked twice, plus you made a lot of solid plays. I think it's hard to say you're the problem, right? I don't think Derek Carr was anywhere near the problem. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think the Raiders should necessarily move on, right? I do think that salary cap is a big part of the game of football. It is what it is, right? And I apologize. I'm having some camera issues, so I may swap from my camera to my webcam here in a second. I see a lot of people who are saying that the Raiders should trade Darren Waller, and I don't know. I don't know if the Raiders should 100% trade Darren Waller yet. Ace Kane said Crosby is such a beast. Sign Jacobs ASAP. I could not disagree with you guys, man. I do think that Max Crosby has been an absolute stud, and I do think that Josh Jacobs has as well. If there's any player that deserves to get a contract, if there's any player that deserves to be extended, I think those are the two guys. All right, Jacobs is the one guy, and with Crosby, I think that contract, which kicks in next season, is absolutely the way to go, right? John Gruden traded away Khalil Mack. Ziegler and McDaniels made the right decision to pay Crosby. So it's gonna be interesting. I see someone saying start Jared Stidham. I don't know. I don't think that makes sense right now. I think Derek Carr played some good football today, right? I think ultimately you lost because of one play versus another play, right? Cole Jeet said, wish they just gave Chiefs that fumble before half. Instead, Chiefs benefited from it the next quarter and a half. That is fact, right? Let's be honest here, man. The Kansas City Chiefs benefited from a lot of penalties outside of that one play. And, some people will say this is true. Some people will say it's not. If the referees make one bad call, then they will have to correct that call, right? And it did seem like the Chiefs got a couple of iffy calls over the next quarter and a half. So I don't know. It is what it is. I see some people saying fire Josh McDaniels. DG, shout out to you. Said Hollins needs to go and water is a glass cannon. I don't know. I think that is, it's a little overreacting, in my opinion. Shout out to you for the super chat. But to say Mac Hollins needs to go after he literally helped us over the past 2 weeks as much as he did, and then to say Darren Waller is a glass cannon, I don't agree. I don't disagree with the Darren Waller remark, to be 100% honest, guys. But the whole Mac Hollins needs to go, I disagree with it. I think Mac Hollins has been really good for the Raiders at different times this season. Plus, who else would be the number 2 at that point? Like Keelan Cole or Albert Wilson, right? So I don't know. I think you keep Matt Collins. Shout out to you though. John said called 1-4 into the bye. Let's move on now. Bengals did it right with Burrow. I don't disagree with it, man. I think when you have a good roster, you need a rookie quarterback because then you can continue to build that roster. This team that the Raiders have right now, I want you guys to think about this. This is not going to be our team next year. Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Abram, some of the other guys, right? Andre James is going to want a contract. He's been our best offensive lineman. Eventually, we'll have to pay a right tackle, whoever that may be. We're not going to have money, right? And that's because of paying a quarterback in Derek Carr. And I think you have to consider both of those things. Plus, you may not be able to have a guy like you may not be able to have a guy like Davante Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow all locked in, and then continue to build guys on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like we have Max Crosby and Chandler Jones paid. We don't have the cap, right? And I think this league is so cap driven. There's a reason why Tom Brady's taken so many pay cuts, and his teams have been so solid throughout his career, right? Mr. Nate Duncanson, man, I've been through some hard times with the Raiders past 15 years, but this hurts on a whole nother level, brother. We should be 5-0 or at least 3-2. I agree, man. Think about it. Like the Chargers game, we had the ball with the opportunity to win. The Cardinals game, we're literally up 20-0 at one point. Or at least I believe that's what it was. The Titans game, I felt like we way outperformed the Titans minus the first 3 drives of the game. We shut them out the rest of the season, the rest of the game. Even this game, right? You kick the field goal, maybe you tie it. Either way, this game was close as well, right? I do feel like the Raiders should have more wins than 1 win. They shouldn't be 1-4. And the shitty part is no one cares. No one's gonna look back and say they should have done this, they should have done that. At the end of the day, we didn't get it done, and we are 1-4. That's all people are gonna look at, right? Shout out to you for the super chat, man. I do have a lot of hope in this Raiders team. Matthew said things just keep getting worse. Davante Adams will probably be suspended and fined now too. After the game, he shoved the cameraman to the ground. I did not see that yet, but if he did that, that's unfortunate. That's stupid if he did do that. He will likely get suspended at least 1 game. Ty Davis said Davante better than me because I would have punched the cameraman in the face. I haven't seen it. I'll have to check it out. But just another thing on top of it, right? Shout out to you though, Matthew Stanley, for the super chat. I do appreciate it. I wanna see it. I want to see that play. If he is suspended, maybe Darren Waller will be back and he'll step up, right? It seems like Darren Waller and Davante Adams aren't able to coexist, which is kind of crazy to think that, right? Johnny said we're always too quick to point fingers and put the blame on someone, but at the end of the day, we haven't been a good football team for 4 quarters. It has ultimately led to a 1-4 start, which is fact. The reason why the Raiders are 1-4 is because we have not been able to put 4 quarters together. If you put 4 quarters together, the Raiders are literally 5-0 at this point. Like there's no team. None of the teams we played are 100% better than the Raiders. You cannot factually say that. We've been in it every single week, right? There's over 900 of you guys, so hit that thumbs up button. It really does help this channel. It takes you guys like half a second to do. So some of you guys, it may take 2 seconds, but definitely hit that thumbs up button. Raider George said the holding call changed the game. Someone else also said to do a film study on it. I will 100% do a film breakdown on it. I'm gonna have the tape in 3 hours, so I have it. I get it at midnight the day after the game ends. And I do see that my camera is going out here, so I think it's a good time to go ahead and end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.